Before examining the subsequent events, it is vital to consider the immediate aftermath. The magnitude of the losses justifies careful reflection. Approximately 50,000 Roman soldiers perished. Some ancient sources report even higher casualties. These losses occurred within a single day. These were not mercenaries. They were not strangers to Rome. They were Roman citizens. Many were fathers, others were brothers. Some were sons of senators, young men from farms. When Hannibal finished encircling the Roman army, the killing did not cease immediately. The situation devolved into suffocation. Men crushed so tightly together they couldn't lift their arms. Many were killed slowly. Escape was impossible. Unable to surrender in any organized way, by nightfall, the field near Cannae was silent. However, this silence did not remain confined to the battlefield. The impact of the defeat soon reached Rome. The city awaited news with nervousness. Initially, rumors circulated. Whispers. Eventually, confirmation arrived. 2 consuls had led that army. One consul was killed in the battle. The other narrowly escaped. The Roman elite, the very backbone of the Republic, had been slaughtered. An often overlooked aspect is the following. This reaction was not publicly displayed. It panicked, not publicly. Internally, however, anxiety was widespread. The Senate reportedly forbade mourning rituals beyond a certain number of days. The rationale for this restriction warrants examination. Because too much visible grief might signal weakness. This policy accentuates the Senate's concern for public perception. The Senate effectively regulated expressions of sorrow. Mothers weren't just grieving sons, they were grieving quietly. Rome could not afford to appear vulnerable. Now, let's go back to the battlefield. The bodies were not immediately buried with honor. The sheer number of casualties made proper burial impossible. Ancient accounts describe piles of the dead. Blood reportedly soaked into the Apulian soil. Some survivors hid among the corpses in an attempt to escape. The stench reportedly persisted for several days. In some accounts, it lasted for weeks. And here's the disturbing part. Many Roman soldiers were taken prisoner. Some were later ransomed. Others were enslaved. A number of prisoners petitioned the Senate for their release. The Senate refused these requests. This decision stresses the Senate's resolve. Rome refused to ransom thousands of captured citizens. The reasoning behind this policy merits consideration. Because paying Hannibal would acknowledge dependence. As a result, many prisoners remained in captivity for years. For the Roman state, principle was favored over individual lives. Over individual lives. Regarding Hannibal's expectations, after Cannae, he expected Rome's allies to defect. Some allies did indeed defect. Some did. However, Rome did not collapse. Instead, the Republic adapted to the crisis. That's the part that changed history. Rather than pursuing peace, Rome adopted a more calculated approach. The Roman military ceased direct engagement with Hannibal. They avoided full-scale confrontation. The conflict was deliberately prolonged. Patience became an important asset. But inside the city, something changed. Fear became policy. Emergency powers were expanded. Sacrifices were reportedly made in desperation, including rare human offerings buried alive in the Forum Boarium. This illustrates the extent of the city's distress. The Republic, which prided itself on discipline, resorted to rituals it normally condemned. The Battle of Cannae did not simply result in the loss of soldiers. It fundamentally challenged Rome's collective identity. Nevertheless, Rome did not surrender. The Republic began recruiting younger boys. Older men were also conscripted. Even slaves were armed with the promise of eventual freedom. 16-year-olds were among those conscripted. They were aware that 50,000 men had recently died. Despite this knowledge, they were handed shields and sent to fight. This response exemplified Roman resilience. Resilience proved not characterized by heroic speeches. Instead, it was identified by exhaustion, desperation, and unremitting survival. Years later, when Rome finally defeated Carthage, the victory wasn't simply military. Rome sought to erase its adversary. When Scipio Africanus defeated Hannibal at Zama, it wasn't only revenge. It provided closure for the trauma of Cannae. Decades later, during the Third Punic War, Rome destroyed Carthage completely. The city was burned, salted the land, at least symbolically, sold survivors into slavery. You can trace a line from Cannae to that destruction. Historical suffering creates a lasting legacy. Empires don't forget humiliation.